All right, so I'm going to hypothesize that you want to know what hypotheses are. Let's get started. Welcome to the Intro to Stats 5-minute lecture series. In this series, we're covering non-calculus based college-level statistics. I'm personally guaranteeing that each video is going to be 5 minutes or less, as you well know. So let's get going. We talked about this topic in a previous video, but to really get into what statistical hypotheses are, we should review what a statistical question is. In business, a question could be, what would be the most effective way to market our new pocket gadget? In the health sciences, which of these drugs are better for quitting smoking? In psychology, perhaps, is memory really affected by age? As future researchers, we often start with the statistical question in mind in relation to some field of study. And then, after we have a question in mind, we can formulate a research hypothesis, which merely means that we're taking an educated guess at the outcome of our question. Keep in mind that in statistics, we try to stay objective in that if our guess is wrong, it doesn't matter. We let the stats tell the story for us. An example of a research hypothesis pulled from the former psychology question, is memory affected by age, might be, people greater than 50 years old take longer to memorize lists of words than those under 50. Taking the research hypothesis to the next step leads us to the statistical hypothesis. We do this by breaking up our hypothesis into two questions, the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis expresses an assumed value for a population parameter that is accepted in the absence of evidence. The null hypothesis is usually the opposite position of the research hypothesis. I know there's a lot of words, and it'll pretty much always be something equal to something else. For example, the null hypothesis for our example would be memorization time for people over 65 is no different than memorization time for people under 65. We would use this as the null hypothesis because in the absence of evidence, this is really our best conclusion. The alternative hypothesis, on the other hand, expresses the values of the parameter proposed in the research hypothesis. For example, the memorization time for people over 65 is greater than the memorization time for people under 65. So first, I'll state the exact definition, and then after that, I'll try to make more sense of it. Statistical significance happens when we obtain sample results that are unlikely and thus surprising if we assume that the null hypothesis is true. Confused yet? All right, let's try this from a slightly different angle. Suppose we have 1,000 randomly chosen people in our sample. 500 are over 65, we'll call group A. 500 are under 65, we'll call group B. And we randomly match up one person from A with one person from B. We determine that 99.8% of the time, the memory time for the younger folks is shorter than the memory time for the older folks. I think almost everyone would agree that if, in fact, the null hypothesis was true, then the results that we receive of 99.8% would seem highly unlikely and definitely surprising. In this case, we would call the 99.8% statistically significant. Put in another way, there is significant evidence to reject the null hypothesis in this scenario. All right, so a lot was thrown at you just then, and I imagine it's fairly confusing. Don't worry, this is really going to become clear when we get into some concrete examples. So for now, that about does it on the topic of statistical questions and hypothesis. If you feel that you did not fully grasp the concepts presented in this video, do not be discouraged. Much of this will make a ton more sense in the upcoming videos, I promise. Okay, again, thanks for watching. Feel free to leave any questions or comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. In the next few videos, we're going to get into some fundamental calculations that we need for this course. Some of it you may already know, and some of it may be pretty new. Either way, it's going to be awesome. So until next time, and as always, stay nerdy, my friends.